All right. Good afternoon, everyone. It is 12 o'clock, so we'll get this meeting going. To kick us off, to the members of the public present, welcome to Mobile GR Commission meeting. This commission provides input on mobility-related activities and programs to department staff and also makes recommendations to City Commission on policies related to these activities. As members of the public, we have two opportunities. We have one opportunity where you can provide comments. You can provide comments related to items on our agenda. I'm gonna keep going on that. At the end of the meeting, you can provide general comments. We are not able to respond to your comments directly. We are listening and using your feedback to inform our decisions. Thank you for taking the time to join us today. All right, can we get a roll call?
Patton.
Here.
Sessa.
Here.
Weiler.
Here.
Rye.
Here.
Miguel Soriano.
Present.
Wilson. LeGrand. Pawalka.
Here.
Whistling.
Here.
We have quorum.
Great, thank you. So we'll start with, can we get approval of the agenda?
I will make a motion to approve the agenda.
Thank you, Commissioner Sessa. Thanks. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I'm sorry, any comments on that I should ask? All right, can we go with the all in favor there? And then approval of the minutes, do we have a motion for that?
So moved.
Support.
Thank you. Any comments? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, and I heard, is it accurate, we don't have any petitions or communications? Okay, great. No action items, so we'll move to our first discussion item, which is the Mobile GR Commission Open Meetings Act refresh.
Good afternoon. I am Dr. Larry with the Attorney's Office. I'm going to give you a very broad overview of the Open Meetings Act, or OMA, as we like to call it. So the purpose of the act, do I change the slides? Okay, there we go. So the purpose of the act is to ensure that government decisions are made in an open, transparent manner, so the public knows what you're talking about. And it applies broadly to both state and local legislative and governing bodies. It includes boards, commissions, committees, subcommittees, authorities, and whatnot. So when does OMA apply? It applies to all meetings of a public body. A public body is defined, it's pretty broad. It includes not only traditional government boards and commissions, but also certain organizations that perform governmental functions or proprietary functions, and well, it's both authority for that as well. Looks like I got the wrong slide. Anyways, so what does OMA require? Requires public notice for meetings. That's taken care of by the clerk's office. The notice must be in a place that's accessible to the public. Here at City Hall, it's on the first floor by the elevators and also on the mezzanine level. I think there's a board that posts all the agenda and meeting information. And the meeting has to be open to the public in a place that's available to the public. And that's why we usually have the doors always open to show that, hey, come in. And then we also have lunch and drinks to entice the public to attend. Can you meet informally? Not really, unless it falls under exceptions, like a chance meeting where, or a social gathering where you don't talk about what you're supposed to be deliberating up here. You don't talk about business outside of outside of, meetings. And, also for training, if you offer me for training, that's totally permissible as well. Yeah, and if you guys meet at the bar, just don't talk about, GR commission stuff. Let's not talk about the lines right now, but you know how it goes. Closed sessions. Now I don't think Mobile GR does closed sessions, so I'll just briefly go over it. And it's basically a part where, part of the meeting that's close to the public, and it's to consider confidential matters like attorney-client privilege, lawsuits against the city or that the city is involved in, talk about personnel and whatnot. Then during the closed session, there has to be minutes. Those minutes are taken by the clerk's office, and they're not accessible to the public unless they have a valid reason, probably like a FOIA request or something along that nature. And you can keep the minutes up to a year, or you have to keep the minutes up to a year plus one, and then after that you can destroy them. And then electronic communications. Beware of the reply all, because if all of you on the same email chain, you reply all and you talk about, commission business, that's a deliberation, and that would trip OMA. Again, you can't really use electronic communication unless there's an exception. One of those exceptions are for military duty, and another exception is for ADA accommodation. And what happens if OMA is violated? It's civil action. There can be a civil action to invalidate the decision, civil action to compel compliance or stop noncompliance. It's also a misdemeanor. And if you have any questions, just contact us. We're more than happy to help. We're here to help you all. Have any questions? Yes.
Could you go over the difference of digital communication and the taking of a poll?
Well, taking of a poll is just kind of like an informal way to see where people lie. You're not actually discussing anything. When you're communicating, it's like, hey, what do you think of this? I think of this because XXX reason, things of that nature. Poll is just, hey, let's
Thank you.
Anything else? Seeing none, thank you for your time.
Who makes it a misdemeanor?
I think
State law?
probably, from what I assume, I have to look into it, Mayor.
Pardon?
I'd have to look into it to confirm, but I'm pretty sure it's state law. Yep.
All right. Yeah, thank you. Any other questions? All right. We're going to move on, I believe. Jessica, you'll be giving us some updates and then some discussion for the DART car share.
Yep. Good afternoon, everyone. Jessica Smith, Mobile GR Director. I just want to remind you all, you got to turn your mics on and off here, and it's mostly for the recording, so folks online that are listening in, and then it helps out your girl Mary over here, who takes notes from the meeting recording later to make sure we've got our minutes right. Thanks. So I wanted to bring up the DART car share, and you all get a report on that every month in your packet. So I want you to turn to, it's page 11 of the updates that are in the back, which is most of your packet today. We just have the minutes and the agenda and then in the back. So it looks a little bit like this, and I want you to look at these tables. So the first side, we'll start at the first page of this. The first page is just kind of looking at average hours per day, some active users, and some things like that. So today I want to walk you through this report, and we're about 15 months into this program, so we're going to look at this report that's looking at the entire life of the program to date, and give you some high-level background on how the program itself and what the scope was, just to give us all refresher because it's been a little while since we started this. And then I would love to just hear your thoughts on how you feel the Dark Car Share program is going. You have some data here, but also any anecdotal experience that you've had, anything that you want to talk about. And then I would love to hear if there's any more information that you might want to see more in depth, because we need to have a conversation starting today, but we'll continue to have a conversation around this board's recommendation for continuing investment in this program for the city. And what is your thoughts and your perspective on the program? So when you look at the first page, it talks about the vehicles available back when we first began the program. So we began the program in October 2024. It was within a few months of my moving to Michigan. It was a really cool program that was launched as soon as I got here. So I got to be in the fun part and not in all the hard work to lead up to it, right? The program launch happened middle of October, and we started taking data right away. But we launched the first 5 cars in October, and then we added a 6th car kind of near the end of the year. So you'll see that we're reporting the 6 cars in December 2024, and then and we expanded the fleet over the last year. The program is considered generally successful. It's exceeding expectations when we compare it to other programs around the country, according to our contractor. And the way that we're doing this program was through a pilot. We put $300,000 over 3 years out for a RFP, and we asked contractors to come and help us plan and develop the program and then actually operate the program. We're about to be in year 3 of the program. The way the contract began, I believe, in April 2024. Hang on, I'm going to let you know. May 2024, and it runs for 3 years through April 2026. Now, that runs us through fiscal year that's coming up right now, so fiscal year 27. So it's kind of in the middle of a fiscal year, and the contract has that same set $300,000 budget through that time. We're about halfway through, and we've spent about half the money. So that's kind of real high-level information there. And we have also worked with our contractor on some grant opportunities, and I just found out that we are this close to finalizing a grant that was received from the state that will also help not only here in Grand Rapids Car Share program, but in other places in the state. So this is a really big good news that I got this morning, so I want to share that all with you. So we've continued to not only use the set-aside $300,000, which was paid for out of the parking fund, but also our contractor helped us look for grant opportunities, and those grants, I just want to clarify, did go to the contractor. They're called Mobility Development, and they do this all over the place, and so they look for grants to help subsidize these programs all over. The Michigan State grant was to them, and it was specific to their car share programs here in the state. So the other thing that we're learning, really high-level information, is it costs about $88,000 a month right now. That's kind of what we're seeing average for the cost of running the program. That's really the cost of the vehicles. That includes any operational things, cleaning, any kind of repairs or anything that we need to do. And so it is a pilot. We're still new in the program, so that number will probably solidify over the next year, but just wanted to share that with you all, and that's with 10 cars. So 2024, December, we were looking at 6 vehicles, and then over the last year, we added an additional 4 vehicles. Originally, we had the 6 locations, and you'll see that if you flip to this page right here. You have 6 locations throughout the city. The city had applied for a CFI NEVI grant through USDOT, and we received that grant. It was for $1.3-ish million to install additional charging stations, and those charging stations were meant for the car share locations, to expand the locations where the car share could be in Grand Rapids. The administration change in January of 2025 paused that program, and we have not worked through the outfall of that still a year later. So we're not sure if we're going to be issued that grant, but we're working through those things. We do have the set-aside match for that funding sitting in a capital project fund, so we are ready when and if the money becomes available. It's important to know that pause on this particular pilot, though, because that is why you see cars beginning to double up at the 6 existing locations. And that's because I don't have 6 additional locations to put the other vehicles at. So we saw such great utilization, and you'll look at it in the DART utilization by charging station. You have charging stations with active users anywhere from 80-some to over 100 active users. And then overall, the other side, the one I really love, is the average hours per day, the utilization of the vehicle. And you can kind of see different locations have different varying numbers, but you're seeing somewhere between 7 and almost 12 hours a day utilization on these vehicles. And so we're just doubling up where we see higher utilization on these vehicles. And that's just a holding pattern until we can come up with an expansion plan, should that be the next step. This current contract was always meant to get 12 vehicles out there in the fleet, so in 2026 you should see 2 additional vehicles come out there. So that's high-level overview of what's going on. I'd love to take any questions. I can see some of you already, your gears turning, and I'd love to just have a discussion around this and what can I help prepare to help you all have the most information you have to consider this program's future.
Thank you. I saw Mayor LeGrand, you.
Yeah, so I've been following this with interest, and first of all, the data on what we're doing right now is great, but there are a couple things that pull in completely different directions that I want to point out. One is that $1.2 million grant. I felt like that was roughly the equivalent of lighting a pile of $20 bills on fire. It was insanely expensive per unit. It was to get 30 220-volt charging stations for $1.2 million. I got 3 of those in my driveway. You can get them on Amazon for $400. I actually think that I understand the model we're using now, which is to take a Chevy Bolt, which charges about as fast, about as slow as you can imagine. I mean, you'd probably charge them faster with a hamster than you can with on a wheel than you could with a fast charging station. Ariel Latham, who's got one, is nodding. Terrible design. They have a maximum direct charge rate of 50 kilowatts. I think that we could pivot if we wanted this program to scale and get bigger. I would actually advocate that we consider something like the Grand Rapids, what the bus system does, which is a lot. If we had a central location where we had a lot of cars that could charge fast, and we invested in a DC charging station, and I've actually talked to ChargePoint, they think the most viable location for a paid fast charging station, which would actually make us money, would be down at the farmers market, essentially. It's close to the highway. If we put in a DC charging station there, it could be a publicly usable asset, so people in their Mach-E's could come down and charge at the fast charging station. But we could also have a fleet of our things there, and we wouldn't be relying on, oh yeah, let's plug in the Chevy Bolt because LeGrand took it to Lansing and now it's going to take 8 hours for it to recharge. If we had cars that charged at a decent rate, we could literally recharge the thing in 20 minutes, which means you could have a fleet of 10 or 15 cars down there, which means you also wouldn't have to think like, oh, there's 2 at the Ethel lot. I wonder if I'll get lucky and have one. One of the reasons why I'm loath to think about taking one to Lansing, for example. I'm going to Lansing tomorrow. The math works on taking one of these, the raw math. I can get 150 miles for free on it. It's $5 an hour. I'm going to go to Lansing for 6 hours because I just need to scare a bunch of legislators and then leave. That doesn't take that long, so I can do that, and I'd be out $50, which is about the cost of owning a car for a day. So it's a great deal, but am I sure I'm going to have one? Like, how long in advance do I want to reserve one? If there were 15 of them down at a farmer's market lot, I could either walk down there, grab an Uber, have my wife drop me off, something, and I could have access to a much larger fleet. So I think the big question is how we scale this up. Now, other cities don't use electric vehicles. I'm an electric vehicle fanatic, love it. So, if you hear me be hesitant about electric vehicles, know that I haven't used fossil fuel since 2015. I love the EV vision, but other car share programs in other cities are like scooters. You drop them on the side of the road, you drop them wherever, they're scattersight around town. Tough to do that with electric vehicles with our current infrastructure. So I do think if we want to think scale, because people are using these, the demand is huge. Question is, do we transition into, hey, you can get an electric car down at these 5 lots if that's your, if that's your vibe. Otherwise, you can get a Chevy Malibu on a street corner that's like, has a rent me sign on it and is run by a program by the city. So I think we should have a structural decision. Like, my big question is, how do you scale it? And I don't think what we're doing is scalable. I think it's great, but I have a hard time imagining it scalable without some real investments and from real pivot. And I think that 220 volt charging stations are only useful when you're having a sleep event. So if you are in a motel or if you're in your house, 220 volts makes sense. If you are not asleep, it does not make sense. So I think if we're going to grow this, we need to get into the fast charging business. There's my dump.
Yeah, I'd like to second the mayor's comments about the fast charging station. I think it'd be interesting data, if we haven't already taken it in right now, to know what are the intervals between charges. I think the movement should just regardless be towards fast charging stations, but I think over the years, if we're not already storing that data somewhere, I think it would be interesting to make sure that we do have that data moving forward. Also, another interesting thing is that I think it's interesting to see the correlations between the top charging stations and their intersections with BRTs. We see that with the Government Center, West Fulton, and Burton and Division. And I mean, Weston is close enough. And then finally, wondering if the funding, is that tied to any of the EPA's change grants?
The funding, our funding or the grant funding at the state level or the grant funding at the federal level?
The grant funding at the state and federal level.
The federal level grant is part of the CFI NEVI program that existed at the time. As you all are probably well aware, there's lots of conversations about what programs are going to continue, or some of these more discretionary funding. So that is tied specifically to the CFI. That's the Mary will Google this because it's left my brain right now. And NEVI is the electric vehicle infrastructure. Thank you very much. Charging and fueling infrastructure. So it was tied specifically to, as the mayor was talking about, charging stations and planning and developing, putting those in. The state funding is for car share programs in particular, and you can do things like buy cars with it, or you can actually use it for operating a program. So it's different funding sources for different things, but we've got kind of a basket of funding that's pretty flexible. And then the local funding is parking revenue, and that's where that funding is city commission directed local funding.
Finally, as a frequent user of the service, I think it might be interesting to look into maybe a separate tier of users that maybe have to get more qualified, or you reach it after certain miles used, that are able to use it across a few days. I think that's an interest that I've heard a lot before joining this commission again. I was a consultant on one of this on this project, and doing the community engagement. That's what we heard a lot about, is how can we rent this overnight. Obviously that comes with its own problems, so that's why I think it'd be interesting to investigate what that might look like. Thank you.
Sorry. So I have, I guess, some similar comments. So I did sign up for this program right when it started, but I haven't actually used a vehicle, and it's because of the things that my fellow commissioners have said. Namely, one thing that has been mentioned is when you go to book a car, you can't see how much charge it has. And so, I mean, I'm in a kind of similar situation to the mayor. I have to go down to East Lansing fairly regularly, and I can't use this to go to East Lansing if I don't know that I have,
Full charge.
70 miles of charge at least. Ideally, I guess I need both ways, 140 miles. So that has been a real barrier to me using it.
And I commuted to Lansing for like 5 years in a Chevy Bolt. Like, you can do it.
Oh, yeah,
As long
no.
as it's fully charged, it's like
Yeah.
the perfect Lansing and back car, as long as you don't care about dying. That's the other thing, is like, they are glorified tin cans. And so like, safety is also something we should be thinking about when we're scaling forward. They are not safe vehicles.
Well, okay, I'm going to push back on that. But I mean, they're only not safe because we have decided that cars should be tanks now. And so every other car on the road is a tank. And if you have a Chevy Bolt, I'm a huge proponent of Chevy Bolts, actually. I love them. I'm very sad that they were discontinued because the smaller a car is, the safer it is for people not in the car. And we don't do that safety testing in America.
I'm talking about
so-
highway driving. It's
Right,
like not
fair
a good
enough.
idea to drive those things on the highway
In any case.
in the winter.
Agree to disagree. Right. So I think that it would be helpful. I agree that it's good to have invest in the DC charging because it is significantly faster and more, convenient for something like this where people are going to be using it and then returning it. I do like the idea, though, of having it accessible at more places in the city because, not everyone is, downtown. Not everyone has to go downtown for whatever reason. So, having things available at other places is helpful. For reference, I used a similar program like this when I lived in Denmark. They had a mix of EVs and traditional vehicles, also hybrids. So, if you needed one that, could get you a long distance, you can do that. Also, what I'm not clear on is how far in advance are you able to reserve a car currently? If a week?
I've done a week.
Oh, okay. Well, there you go. Then that answered my question. But that doesn't answer the question of hopefully, that car is fully charged when you need it. Yeah.
And again, if we had a collect lot with fast charging stations, you wouldn't have to worry about that. You'd be like, oh, great, I have to charge the car before I leave. Could you tell us? You said we've got money set aside in case we get administration change or something. How much money have we got set aside?
So what I was saying is that we have, when you apply for a grant like that, you have to sign on the dotted line that you've put aside the required match. And I believe the match on that grant was 20%.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So we don't have $1 million sitting around somewhere we could use
It's
on.
more like 300,000.
Okay,
so.
you can do a DC charging station for that, so.
Correct, but just to be clear, the match money is sitting there until we have clarified whether or not the grant can be fully used. Right now,
Sure.
I can't use that funding
Right,
until we have that question answered. But it's a good question.
right. Do you know if we still have an EPA?
An Environmental Protection Agency?
Yeah, do we still have one? I don't know.
I
Does the agency that theoretically would give you this grant still exist, or does anyone work there anymore?
well, first of all, it's from USDOT, but I haven't checked my work email this morning, so maybe someone sent me some information, but I do not know the answer to that question today. I'm going to go with probably.
Let's take maybe 5 more minutes on this if anyone has any other questions. I want to make sure Ariel has time to present on our next discussion item.
I just wanted to say thank you for the financial picture of this. I do think that in this report, it would be helpful to have kind of a cost basis of, what does it cost the average person in Grand Rapids? What's our grant funding like? So on and so forth. But yeah, appreciate it.
And
Can I follow up real quick? Can you tell me more? The average cost per
Well, I
person?
guess,
So user?
Like the cost, like what is the taxpayer paying for this? Like
Oh,
what's our profit loss like on it, et cetera?
can I also weigh in on that? I sort of dream that we could have a campaign and that like maybe Mobile GR could do it, saying like be a 1.5 car family. I was like thinking 1 car family, but then winter happened and I have to walk to work now, which not that many people can do. But a world in which you could have a car in the winter, which you threw in your garage 6 months of the year, is a 1.5 car world. This is a key part of this. Like, this is what might be the difference between, so this isn't just like, it costs a little less than $1 a mile if I'm doing my math right, but we're not, the benefit for the end user is huge. So there's a huge external benefit here, which we could quantify with some testimonials, like, oh, we were going to get a second car, but then I figured out how to use rideshare or whatever. Like, I'm convinced, I keep figuring out how to like get rid of a car in my life. And when I said I could use this to go to Lansing, that's one of the big things I need is to solve is like, how do I get to Lansing? And if this can solve that problem for me, it stops me getting another car. So I think that this is a big deal, this program, but it's a bigger deal than just the dollars would show us. If we're going to do that, like it costs $1 a mile, then the question would be like, why are taxpayers paying $1 a mile? Why don't you go buy your own car?
I don't want to be misunderstood.
No. I'm saying how we frame it is going to be really important.
Yes. I guess what my angle is this is a very important program, but we have other very important programs that might more efficiently use money to affect a greater change amongst more people. So that's all I was getting at. Thank you, though.
Appreciate the clarification. I do want to remind you all, and I talked about this at the beginning, but I know sometimes it's confusing. This is a program that's funded through the parking fund, which is parking revenue. So when we talk about the cost to average taxpayer, I think I'm extrapolating. You're just saying what's the cost of the program, and it's you all take a look at the budget, and you're very astute about this. So when we spend parking fund dollars, we're talking about the cost to a parking customer is really what we're pulling this funding from, and so I think that's excellent that you brought that up. And so what I'm hearing, I just want to clarify, is y'all are thinking about like the P&L sheet. What's the profit and loss? What is the cost of the program? What are those
Right.
details?
Like,
you got it.
Where can we more efficiently allocate money?
Yeah, sure. And I love that. So knowing and understanding that this is kind of what the program costs, and then and this is what I'm driving at too, is what sort of investment in your perspective should be continued to make past the $300,000 that we all agreed to when I say all, the city commission put aside to work on this problem. Is there a continued investment here, and what does that look like? And so I think you're asking for some kind of just a high level financial information so that you can think about that, the answer to that question. Is that kind of what you're looking for?
Yeah,
Okay.
I guess I'm struggling to find it right now, but we have kind of, well, maybe we don't have it anymore, but we had kind of a cost per mile for like the dash in I think our old presentations. So like just showing the effectiveness of the program from a monetary standpoint
Sure.
with the parking dollars.
You got it.
All right. So I think so far what I've heard, and correct me if I'm wrong, there is interest in sustainability of this program and potential to scale. Additionally, with the ability to see what's available, what charge is like, and then investing in new forms of quicker charging. So I want to kind of put that out there. I would also put out there for myself, I'm interested in maybe what some of the qualitative data is. What problems are we solving for those using this? And what problems could we be solving for those who are not using it? So I think that would be good for us to understand as we make decisions and see if this is still something that Mobile GR should focus on expending dollars on.
I'll second that. It would be good if we could collect anecdotal stories and testimonials about how this has improved people's lives. That's feedback that can't be quantified or collected with numbers, but it's still important.
All right. All right. If there are no objections, we'll move on to the Parking Incentive Program Working Group. Jessica, did you get everything you needed for that?
Yeah, I think I have a great place to start, and thanks for the summary at the end. And I'm really interested to hear. I think this is super important for me to know. You're really interested in the user experience. What are the users and the customers of this program really experiencing? What problems are we solving for them, and what problems are we not? That maybe we're not solving that could be solved with a scaling of this program. You're interested in financial sustainability of the program. What does that investment look like, and how do we scale? And how do we scale with emerging technology? And also, where is that line between convenience and fiscal the fiscal realities of what that convenience costs, and where do we? And I'm extrapolating a little bit. Where does that cost come from? So I really appreciate this discussion. It's super helpful, and it helps guide me in the direction of what information to bring back to you all so we can keep having this conversation. So, all right.
Could I add one more thing?
Yeah.
Not just to scale with new tech, but I also wonder, like, there's a lot of cars out there. Is there a way to scale with old tech? And so even in thinking about Ethel Lot, like, if there are existing cars or other, like a neighborhood car share. Just last night we were having a conversation amongst 6 of our friends. Hey, could we reduce down to a smaller number of cars and then just share? But the idea of having those neighborhood hubs become transit options for that beyond electric, that could be cool.
Thank you so much. If there's nothing else, are you ready for your next one?
Yes.
So just to tee this up for Ariel Live from Ellis is here with Flywheel. Flywheel was the team that helped augment our staff to run a working group for the parking incentive program policy, and the group got together, and Ariane is going to, Ariane is a totally different person. Ariel is going to walk y'all through, and give us a little review of what that, the charge for that group was, and then what the outcome and some things that the group learned, and some recommendations to, some change recommendations to this policy. As a reminder, this is a city commission policy. We have a couple of different types of policies at the city. Some are city administrative policies. This is a city commission policy, so this is the decision lies with the city commission. Staff brought this to you all's attention because the policy is quite old, and the way that it stands today, it's still on the books. And so if we have someone come and apply for this program, you all are the delegated body that approves those applications. We approved a couple of them last summer, and you all were like, where did this come from? How much is this costing us? This program seems like it needs to be looked at. And so that is where the impetus from this working group came from. And I just wanted to remind everyone, and also just inform some of our newer commission members, that that's where we stood on this. So this is still very much in discussion. This is a draft, and we're really looking forward to hearing you all's thoughts, since this might be the first time you're hearing about this from the beginning. Is there any other background information? You just ping me if you need me. Okay?
Okay. Thanks.
Yep.
Thanks for the context for that. Mary, can I use the clicker? Probably not, since it's a PDF. Okay. I can. Great. Okay, Ryan's not here today, so you're stuck with me. And I should say, for transparency, most of you know me, but Adam and I are colleagues outside of this room. So just a brief overview of Housing Next. I think that Ken and Wesley were the only two who weren't here when I presented last time, just so you can kind of understand. We did this work through the agreement that the city has with Housing Next, because we believe that land use and mobility are very closely linked. Just a brief reminder that we need a lot of homes in Grand Rapids over the next few years, and we see transit and mobility as directly part of that. So the big goal for the parking incentive program, of course, was to review it, as Jess said, and deliver those clear recommendations. So my job today is really to tell you what the working group came up with. We had 3 sessions, and then the fourth step is consensus and recommendation. So a few months ago, I was here for session 1 where we went over the values. I'm just going to keep it high level today because we have a lot to go over. Session 2 is really about data and capacity. So understanding that origin data, the current demand. We got this data from OHM for the parking investment strategy that is currently being completed. We had Marianne Bono, who was on the working group, who works for DGRI, present where customers are coming from. And then Max Dillevin went over the parking data findings that OHM had thus far. So session 3 was the last time that the group got together. Essentially, there were 2 things that needed to be done. We needed to decide, do we want to sunset the program? And overwhelmingly, while opinions varied, they voted to modify and refine it. So then we did, the second part of that was to go through a prioritization exercise, and the results were top, mode shift, better utilize the existing parking, supporting low-wage workers, et cetera. Okay, so I want to get into this a little bit, and hold on, I have some notes written down. So when we think about mode shift, and why would a parking incentive strategy that on its face seems like it's really encouraging people to park for more cheaply, how in the world would that advance mode shift? I'll just be transparent, and I'm okay with the public knowing this, that it was kind of, it felt a little bit backwards to me in certain ways to think about how managing parking could really help us start on a path to mode shift. So shifting cars into decks, long story short, reduces the pressure on limited curb space. Right now, we have a little bit of a mismatch, right? So we see cars parked all over on streets, and not all the time, but there are certain times of the day where we have pretty low utilization in our decks. Obviously, when you can clear the streets and stack your parking, you clear the right of way for a better and higher use, whether that's transit priority, loading and deliveries, bike and, micromobility infrastructure, but it's a higher, you open up the possibility for a higher and better use of your public realm. So it really is, it's about efficiency. So the bottom line is that every car stored in a deck is one less car competing for storage in the right of way. And so when you look at your, the goal of better utilizing your existing parking, something that we all need to acknowledge is that these parking decks are a major public investment that were made long before any of us were involved, and they do come with ongoing obligations. That's debt, that's operations, that's maintenance, it's getting paid no matter what. So those costs exist whether your decks are full or empty. And we can get into the weeds on that, but current pricing and convenience patterns push parking demand to the curb, leaving the paid-for capacity underused at certain times of the day. Those empty spaces don't generate any return on investment, but so your current pricing patterns suppress deck use. Are there other ways to get towards utilizing deck use? Yes. The way that the working group recommended was creating incentives to help convert that unused capacity into operating revenue. Are there other ways? Like I said, yes. Are they politically feasible today? Probably not. So improving your deck utilization makes better use of your existing public investment. It reduces cost pressure on downtown workers and employers, eases demand on the limited curb space that we have, and generates not zero revenue. So your unused capacity isn't neutral, it's just kind of inefficient. So the draft policy really looks at a 3-tiered program, basically where you're looking, so you have it right in front of you. Your 3 tiers, you're looking at low-wage workers who are in downtown 3 or 4 days a week, I think. You can, your employer can apply for you, or you can apply as the employee. And there's details that I don't remember off the top of my head. key tensions I think that the group wrestled with were, just the elephant in the room, right? If it's the top goal, advancing your mode shift, how does this policy really reconcile that? And the truth is that pricing influences behavior, but only when viable alternatives exist. So this policy does not create mode shift on its own, nor does it create demand for driving, is the truth. That demand already exists. It manages parking demand. That's important. Within existing supply, while other tools advance mode shift over time. So the other thing to think about is durable change requires sustained support, and support is easier to build when people see alternatives and relief. So it's one tool among many, and it's a near-term implementable step. It is not a complete transportation solution, and nor is it a replacement for transit or land use change. So another way to drive demand to your existing decks is to raise your on-street pricing, and while that might work in theory, backlash can undermine longer-term goals. Sequencing relief and incentives builds credibility, goodwill, and staying power. So it's also important to remember what the scope of this group is, what this body can and can't do. This board has a narrow but very important lane, so long-term goals require multiple tools across multiple bodies. The responsibility here is to use the tools that we control well without overburdening any single policy. So I would say if you have a policy, you can look at it, examine it, but that should not preclude you from continuing on to figure out how to complement. You don't want to just eat green olives for dinner, right? Like, you want to have a whole meal. Other considerations that, for example, you might want to think about: transportation demand policies, your car share. I would say that the psychology of relief versus inconvenience is very real. People respond, to use the word again, more durably to clear alternatives and perceived fairness. Relief builds credibility, and inconvenience without options breeds resistance. Sequencing matters for long-term behavior change. Sudden cost increases can trigger, a feeling of public backlash. And I would say that, to speak to the mode shift point, that can actually end up reversing progress. And managing that risk, the reason I'm talking about this is part of good policy design. So, I would say that think about this as one tool of a suite of tools. You're going to need to look at transit investment, different pricing adjustments, land use and housing strategy, and that requires partnership with your other departments. And then, of course, changes to street design. So, finally, you have a lot of power in this policy to review it on an annual basis. I would recommend to committing to a regular evaluation of utilization, your equity impacts, unintended consequences, adjust tools as conditions and alternatives improve, right? So I think that trying to stick the landing the first time really creates this culture of perfectionism. So I would say this is not a one and done decision, it's an adaptive one, and one that, is in great need of updating. Thanks.
Thanks, Ariel. Any questions for Ariel?
So I don't have specific questions, but I thought I could sort of voice some feedback as I was part of this working group. My fellow commissioners that are not here anymore. So I am the representative that was there and can speak to it. For full transparency, I don't support this policy. And I acknowledge that the prevailing thought was to modify and refine the policy that we have, and I don't think that this is the modification that we need. As you say, the primary goal of that working group, as decided by the prioritization exercises, was to advance mode shift. And given the explanations that you have, I still disagree that this policy is doing that in any meaningful way. I feel that something that would be valuable to add would be some language or requirement for businesses who, are offered this incentive program to have to come to the table in another way as well, through like offering bus passes for their employees, through supporting shared or personal micromobility solutions for people who commute to work. Because basically, if you have a parking incentive for employees to drive to work, you lose money if you bike to work, because that's an incentive that you don't get. And so I think that there are ways that we can refine the policy. I don't think this is the one. But also just to be to think about this policy as it relates to the many plans and goals and documents that the city has adopted over the past decade plus at this point. I don't see alignment of this policy with those goals and plans that were adopted by City Commission, namely the Community Master Plan, which has specific goals to call out manage supporting programs that encourage travel options other than personal vehicles. This would include employer subsidies for commutes via transit, walking, and biking, develop programs to support employees who carpool, walk, bicycle, or use transit to access jobs, and support collaboration between businesses, organizations, and communities to expand commute options. So I don't see how this policy as written is matching with our, the city's sort of guiding plan for what we want to do in our city in the next 20 years. The other prioritization that came out of the group was supporting lower wage workers. Again, I have a hard time with this as a way to do that. Mostly because just considering the demographics of people who own personal vehicles, a discount on monthly parking is more likely to benefit higher income earnings than these lower wage workers, simply because the lower wage workers are far more likely to not own a car in the first place. And so these workers are the ones who need support from other systems, like transit, like incentives for biking and walking. And there's plenty of data from Grand Rapids. A little over 20% of rental households in Grand Rapids do not have a car at all. The U.S. Bureau of Transportation Statistics in 2022 said that the lowest fifth of household income earners own the fewest number of vehicles on average, and that 30% of low-income households do not own a vehicle. And with the cost of owning a car annually above $10,000 a year, a small reduction in perhaps the cost to park is really a drop in the bucket. I mean, yes, does it help? Sure, I'm not going to say that it wouldn't if you do own a car and you do have to park downtown. However, the backside of this is that it is now perpetuating what a very well-known phenomenon of, course, car ownership, where lower wage and low-income households purchase a car despite their financial difficulties, simply because it's the only way to get around in car-dependent communities. And so I don't see that this is supporting them. Finally, I have a number of concerns then with, the policy, the tiered program, everything like that. This was going from a policy that was, one, time limited. Mm-hmm. It was for new businesses who are opening up locations downtown with a lease, and they could get a time limited reduction in their monthly parking for employees. Essentially, this policy removes that time limitation. So we're no longer incentivizing anyone to come downtown because it just exists all the time. Like, it's not an incentive for a new business anymore because, you can just always have this. And I have concerns about that from a financial perspective. From the long term, I would like to see an analysis of, the real world, like money of what we have, like what do our parking decks cost us? How much money do we make from parking at all of these locations? You know, if we sold X number of these passes at a reduced rate, you know, what would that look like for, you know, how much revenue we would gain or lose? Because it is possible we would gain revenue. I'm not going to say that that's not true. But, you know, that's all there is. So.
Commissioner Sessa, I want to make sure that others have
Yes,
an opportunity as well.
and I'm done.
Okay, all right,
So-
thank you.
I'd just like to say I support Commissioner Sessa's comments.
I too support Commissioner Sessa's comments, especially I'm very against removing the time limitation on this policy. It does not contribute towards mode shift.
I disagree with a number of the comments. First of all, I think that time-limited policies are a terrible idea. Loss leaders, I mean, what are you trying to do, sucker people into coming downtown? If their model for being a business downtown relies on a limited subsidy, then you're working on a churn cycle. I don't like things that attract new businesses but don't support existing businesses. Politicians often chase new jobs when they should be worrying about sustaining the jobs they've got. So I think it's best policy. Figure out what your best policy is. Figure out what you're trying to incentivize and stick the landing, to use your phrase. So I disagree on that point. I do realize this is a middle ground question, and I think Ms. Latham framed it right. We've got these parking decks. So can we make things better downtown? Now, I did love your point about like, could we like require people who are in this to offer incentives, to offer some kind of counterbalance, right? It's a little bit like the dilemma of traditional healthcare programs, right? They subsidize families. Now, you know, I guess I'm pro-family, but the reality is, like, my family consumes a lot more health care than Marshall Kilgore's does from my city salary, and we structure it that way, and we always have. Now, what I would say is, I think that this is a middle way. We're living in a car addicted society. We want to shift away from that. I think all of us do. I guess. I would love to figure out the both and the I guess I'd take more of an incrementalist approach to this, which is to say, yeah, I think it sucks that poor people wind up having to buy cars so that they can drive in from Lowell. And one of the things that I'm really trying to emphasize when we talk about housing in town is the real cost of housing is the cost of your housing plus the cost of your transportation. And so there's a huge discount on any housing that lets you not drive to work, not have to have a car. And so, you know, our superpower as a city, as opposed to the rest of the county, is that it's possible to live that life. So, you know, don't take it wrong. I'm with you philosophically. I want to build a world where I don't have to have another car in my life. But I do think if we can incentivize people into moving to decks, I guess where I'd come down on this is just like evangelicals all wear the "What would Jesus do?" I think we should all wear a bracelet that says "What would Shoup do?" High cost of free parking. So a couple things he would say here, it seems to me, are one of the things that jumped out at me is our street parking is too cheap. So I think this could be part of a coupled conversation where we asked, how do we really increase the price of street parking? Now, one reason to do that is because then if you really need to go into the bank, if parking is high enough, if street parking costs high enough, you can use it for its best use, which is jump out of my car and do something a minute, right? It shouldn't be used by the waitress at the wine bar downtown because she grabbed a spot at 5 o'clock and knows that she just has to feed the meter till 7, and then she gets to occupy the spot for the rest of the night. That's a terrible use of that space. So all of our street parking, we should be moving, it seems to me, to really rapid turnaround convenience parking, and it should cost. It should cost a lot more than it does by the hour because that would incentivize you to get out of that parking spot. Now, one of the things Shoup got really excited about recently is, and historically, like he has this tale of two cities about, I want to say Pasadena and another comparable city around LA. And he's like, one of them took all of their street parking revenue, Pasadena, and told the community, we're going to use all this revenue for stuff you get. Like, more, downtown ambassadors, for more tangible things, for facade improvements in your neighborhood. And then it was like, hallelujah, we got an extra $200,000 a year from street parking, and we got to use it for facade grants. So if people can, so the political reality is I'm looking for a way, if we could get people to see that the dollars they are spending on more expensive street parking wherever in this town was really spent in areas where they could see the direct benefit, I think you'd get rid of a lot of the resistance. And I don't know, I'm really just spitballing, guys, but life is short, and so this is my new, life is short. Discussions have to start with imagining. I don't know if the parking system can give away revenue. I don't know if we could raise rates and say, guess what? We're going to raise the parking rates downtown from $2 an hour to $6 an hour, and half of that increase is going to go to public safety. It's going to go to GRPS, to the United Way. I'd rather have it go to public safety because who doesn't? Not us, right? But the number one thing I hear from people who don't live downtown is, I don't want to go downtown. Downtown parking is so expensive, blah, 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 right? And I also hear, oh my gosh, I saw somebody downtown that wasn't middle class once, and it scared me, right? So I would love to be able to have more ambassadors downtown, because I think the median street parker wants to feel like they're safe downtown. And I'm not saying they're right to not feel safe. Hear me? It drives me nuts when people act like downtown's not safe. It's insanely safe. But the medium is the message, perception's reality. If the downtown street parker from Ada sees an ambassador between where they park and the bank, they're going to feel differently about downtown, and they're going to feel like, oh, I get it. And if all of our signs said 50% of your parking revenue went to downtown ambassadors, then the median Ada parker on street parking might be like, oh, I get it. So I wonder if we should be crafting a plan to really, really jack up the price of street parking, but really, really point out the revenue value of that. And if that helps us push people into our ramps, hallelujah, it opens up for street parking. It opens it up for convenience. It actually makes your experience of going downtown and jumping into a business way more viable. But I also think that the idea of getting people into the ramps and incentivizing them, we got the ramps, we're not unbuilding them. And they do have costs. So I do think that incentivizing them is great, but I do love the idea of tagging it to, if we're going to let you have this program, tell me what you're doing for bikers. If you got somebody who comes in and says, hey, I don't consume the thing you're giving me, can you give me $10 an hour? Can you give me another $10 on my paycheck? It doesn't have to be the full cost of the parking, but some concession. If we could build that into our policy, I would digest, it would sit a lot better in my belly. So that core point, I 1,000% agree with you on. Sorry, that was long too.
I want to look, well, I guess if I can take a quick moment too, I think right now what we have in front of us is we have, one, I'm going to take from, the recommendations of the working group that this was not something that the current item that we have, the current policy we have, is not one that the working group wanted to abandon or remove. So that's kind of what I'm working on. So then we have two options otherwise. The first is, well, we, maybe vote to say, yes, we want to encourage this new policy. Maybe there are some amendments we want to make. And we have, in my esteem, what I believe to be a better policy than what we currently have from the 90s. Or we don't adopt it and we have a policy from the 90s, and that stays on the books because we're not going to be able to remove that policy. And so I think that I want to make sure that I'm putting that framing out there as well. The other thing that I see that's positive about this is it gives us the opportunity to review this annually, right? And if we want to say, hey, this isn't working out, then we can advise on that. And so we do have that opportunity too. So I want to put that out there. That's my 2 cents, and also see if anyone else has anything to add. Yeah, Commissioner Whistling.
Yeah, thanks. I very much agree that I think if there's anything along this line, should it in some way tie into TDM as well. I'm not sure what that looks like, but that seems the way where we could kind of bridge the gap on that and make it go the direction we want to go. The other question for Tier 3, it seems like, am I interpreting this, anybody would be eligible for this? And then my question, like, if everyone's eligible, wouldn't everybody apply? And how do you make that determination? Like, or is there some guidance there? I'm just curious, because 1 and 2 kind of have guidelines and limits around that. I'm curious what Tier 3 would be.
Yeah, we didn't want to make it super narrow and always want to like hold space for policy to adjust in the future. So the idea is that if you have a queue, right, and you're Tier 1, you're Tier 2, you look around, everybody who's going to apply has applied, right, and say you still have a ton of spaces available, you have the option of awarding that incentive. So that's the thinking. I know that this was over a month ago that I gave you the report, but if you read through it, it does detail how that, you get to jump the queue if you're a low-income worker or employer. So
I have a few questions. This is for a discount on monthly parking passes, timed parking passes, or a bundle of day passes for only the ramps? Okay.
Yep.
Let me just make sure that this is clear. It looks at monthly only.
Monthly? Okay.
So that's your current incentive program is around monthlies, and that's what we're considering. Some of the other things you listed, like a bundle of dailies, it's not a parking product that exists right now administratively. I'm not saying it doesn't exist in the world, but so this is just looking at monthly parking pass, as you put it, discount.
Okay.
We just wanted to be sure to include that, so in the future, if that were to become a product for the city, that you have that lever to pull.
Okay. Another question. I mean, thinking about transportation demand management, that TDM aspect, is it even possible for us to insert an eligibility requirement that employers also offer bus passes? Because the city doesn't operate the Rapid. It's a different entity.
Yeah, I mean, I would look to you, Kevin, to talk about that.
I mean, there would have to be conversation. If the city, you can do it different ways. Like the employer is required to buy a bus pass for employees that ask for it. That's obviously very possible. The city could, in terms of partnership with the Rapid, that'd be a further discussion if there's something beyond just you must offer this as a service to your employee. So basically the employer has to pay $47 to pay for the employee's bus pass. That obviously is very doable. And there's employer portals that can be managed, or the individual could do it as well. So, and that could be a tax-free benefit as well. So there's many ways it could be done, but be happy to talk more if there's other avenues more directly we want to pursue.
Does the Rapid currently have any sort of incentive program that's like parallel to this for employers?
We have employer portals where they can manage bus passes for their employees. And some nonprofits do have some discounts, but in terms of for-profit is basically the full cost. But it's still $47. We argue is a very discounted way to do the trip too, of course. But yeah, or $65.
Jessica, I'm going to pull my newbie card for a moment. I know this is under discussion. Was the intent to only discuss this and potentially vote on a recommendation next time we meet, or for us to?
Great question. So, as I was talking about earlier, this is a city commission policy that you all are looking to come up with a recommendation from this body on some changes to that policy based on your experience with it and the fact that you have this delegated authority to approve applications to this program. So, we wouldn't normally just reach out to the city commission and say, we have some advice for you. Right. We'd wait for them to ask us or something. But on this particular thing, it's one of the few things that y'all have total ownership over approving. But the policy itself needs to be approved by the city commission. So the idea here is that we had a working group to discuss what would a different policy look like, and you have in front of you the first blush draft at what a different policy might look like. And so this discussion is super helpful, and then like the logistics of how you want to continue this discussion, document it, and then provide some sort of recommendation. My recommendation to you all is that this discussion is super helpful. You kind of have it in the limited time that you have, and then you all can make a decision as a body. Would you like us to help give you a summary of this discussion and bring it back in a memo form? Or would you like to continue to have this discussion? And obviously we take notes for you all and think about it some more. It's up to this body how much discussion you'd like to have before you would like to formally write your recommendation. And it may be here's in the world of possibilities, it may even be the will of this body that you say, you know what, this is not the draft for us, go back and try again. You could also say, this is a good draft. Here are some changes we would like staff to make. Please bring it back to us and we'll continue to discuss. The world is kind of your oyster on this, but those are a couple of little avenues that you could go. Does that help kind of answer your question? And the rest of you who are probably also curious, like, how do we navigate documenting our recommendations for something like this?
Yeah.
Is that helpful?
Yes.
Okay,
that is.
cool.
I want to make sure we have time for, of course, public comment, director's comment. This might be, if we can maybe get, I'm going to make this recommendation, if we can get a sort of note, high level, kind of what we discussed today, and then potentially bring it back for a discussion and determination for next steps. How does everyone feel about that?
Yeah, but if we could, I think the sentiment of the group was if you could draft some kind of incentive program requirement for people to be in the program for use of non-motorized transportation or non-individual car transportation as a hook. I'd like to see some draft of what would make sense for that, and whether we talk to the Rapid about it or somebody, like, it's hard to say it in the abstract. It's too amorphous. So.
If I might summarize what I think you all were landing on there with the discussion is you'd like to see some sort of teeth that connects this policy to the greater TDM work that we're doing. Is that sound? I'm seeing some nodded heads. So your request is that, and this is my question would be, would you like to see the working group consider that, or would you like to see your staff that maybe are working on the TDM Grader program add that context in some way? Do you want us to kind of go think about that for you?
The latter.
Yeah, that's
the second
that's how I'm
part.
feeling.
Okay. I think that is doable, and I will go back and check with that team and ask them. How about this? Can I ask them to review what we have in front of us and then make their recommendations based on the conversation you all have had today and your input? How does that sound as a next step?
Good.
Okay.
Awesome.
And I'm hearing that what you'd like to do is add this to your agenda next time we have some time on the agenda to continue this discussion after we've had a chance to review from a TDM perspective and see if there's anything that could be added.
That sounds great.
Okay, we will take a crack at it. And if you don't mind, I would like, instead of promising you guys before I know what our agenda is looking like, can I work through our next few months of agendas and find a good place for y'all? I'll have dedicated time to think about this, and I'll get back to you on when is a good time, so that you're not just surprised next month, yay, Okay, and then also so I can work this into the work plan. How does that sound? Okay, you got it. I think I know what you all want. We will go back. We will take a look at this from the folks that are working on the TDM side of things to review what the work that's been done by the work group and then make their recommendations, and we will bring you back that to a time when you have time on your agenda to address this a little bit more fully and then take into account the time it might take that team to pop this into their workload.
Great.
Sound good?
Yeah.
All right.
Thanks,
I have my action item.
Awesome. Thank you all for the discussion, too. Ariel, thank you for
Thanks.
the presentation and for your time today. All right. We will move on. Let me get my agenda in order. I think that we have just the updates. Anything of note there?
I think I covered the EV car share updates pretty well. The other thing I just wanted to flag for you all, we are in the middle of our there's full swing in budget development right now, and as part of that, we are taking into account some of the questions you all have had over the year about things that are sitting in our project list. And what I am narrowing down is what can we get done over the next fiscal year, and then kind of we try to work plan out about 5 years, and then adjust this project update so that you all are seeing what we're working on right now. So I'm hoping to skinny up that overall updates for you all and then I also have heard some feedback from you all on like more pictures, more graphs, more and shorter. So working through that, and I just want to let you know that I did hear that feedback, I'm working on that, and you should expect that to start changing over the next couple of months. And obviously it looks quite the same this month. So thank you for those thoughts and feedback on the update report. Would you like me to do my updates now?
Yes, and then if there are any
Oh, yeah. Were there any questions on the updates? I'm sorry about that.
Just a comment. I would love to see on the dash side of things a breakdown of the different lines that we have and how they're performing. Last month, I alluded to the fact that I've never seen a positive trend in the dash work line. I am under the impression our resources could be better spent elsewhere. So I would just like to see a better analysis of that line and how it compares to our regular dash circulator line as well. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for that, Commissioner Pawalka. I think we will be having some updates too in coming months.
Mm-hmm. Yep, I promised y'all, I think in October, that I would come back to you with dash conversations in February, and here we are. And
I look forward
ready.
to it.
I'm going to be ready. But I'm excited to have that conversation, and thank you for that note.
All right. If there aren't any other questions or comments, directors' updates? Great.
For me?
Yeah,
Okay.
Any updates from you?
Yep, couple little things. As I mentioned, budget is in full development mode right now, so we're heads down trying to get our everything put together. And I just really appreciate, I know that we had some conversations, and you all probably think it was a really long time ago, but we think about budget well before we start doing our inputs this time of year. And so I really wanted to thank you all for your engagement and conversations back when we had a work session in October, November timeframe. I really appreciate all those conversations, and we take your thoughts and your perspective into account when we're developing our work plans and budgets. The mobility blueprint, we are still developing just the final internal alignment. We've had lots of conversations with you all around that, and again, that is really helpful to hear your perspective. We are really, really hoping to get that project started in the next few months. The next step is to put a RFP out on the street, and we, being me and my project team, we're really looking and hoping that can happen about February. Now, if that's February the 28th, it was still February, but just letting you know, I'm hoping to see that very, very soon. The parking investment strategy is wrapping up, and we are looking to come to you all with that draft of the outcome of that strategy in February, March. And I believe we've landed on February, but it's coming. Everything's coming super fast. Again, we're going to talk a lot about Dash next month, and I want to make sure you have plenty of time for that discussion. And then I just really want to thank our new chair and vice chair. Well done, your first meeting, leading in that role. And then also just really appreciate every single member of this commission, your engagement and time and intention to this important work. It's just really, it's so helpful and valuable. And I just really appreciate everything you're doing and showing up month after month for us here. It's all coming together. The final thing I just wanted to, I don't know if y'all have done this math, but I have. And we have, I think, 82 working days until the opening of the amphitheater. And we are very focused on how to support your parking customers coming down, and then also everyone else getting over here by any mode. We have had lots of fabulous conversations with the Rapid on how to prepare for those days, and we will talk more about that when we're having that Dash conversation. And I'm excited to hear you guys' thoughts and perspective, and you all just adding to that continued. How do we get people moved around when we have a really, really cool new venue that's got 12,000 seats, and I hope I don't have, okay, I was like, I hope I have my numbers mixed up. 12,000 seats there, a couple of blocks down the street, 10,000 seats at the Van Andel Arena, 12,000 there. Anyway, it's a lot, y'all, and this is just such a cool thing that's happening for the city, but we haven't put something like this in, few decades, and so we're very excited and we're doing our best, but we want to bring you all some of our plans and show you how we're kind of getting from here to there. So looking forward to having some more conversations around that. And that's all from me.
All right. At this point, I'll move into public comment. Let me find all right. I will now open the floor for general public comment. The board would appreciate having the members of the public attending the meeting today identify themselves before providing comment. However, it is not required to give your name.
Thank you.
My name is Scott Atchison, and my contact information are on the sheets that are being passed around. I want to reflect what Jessica just said about the dash thing and getting people moved around. What I'm proposing is that we need an information system and an information center for downtown. What the Rapids are going to be doing with their dash buses for parking, there needs to be information and communication, which is totally lacking. Totally lacking. There's a 3-page document. First page pretty much says it, but the third page is the same thing as the first page. But which bus? Which bus? Because not everybody's going to be able to park at the new venues here, the soccer stadium and the amphitheater. They're going to have public transportation, Ubers, and you need an information system. What came first, the chicken or the egg? No. What came first, the information system or the information center? Grand Rapids downtown has neither. Your Convention and Visitor Bureau and Downtown Development are letting you down. Or should I say, Experience Grand Rapids and Downtown Grand Rapids Inc. are letting you down. It seems like everybody's having 2 names. But for information, but let me backtrack. I do love the new Motu app. For the past year or so, I've been using it coming downtown, and it's great. I can cancel it when I'm early and adjust my billing on my credit card, and my credit card keeps all the expenses. But I'm saying, the Downtown Development Authority should build an information center right at Pearl and Monroe, and the Convention and Visitor Bureau, Experience Grand Rapids, and DGRI employees should work inside there remotely. So you don't need to hire new people for an information center. You use DDA and CBB employees already. The ambassadors are cleanup people. They're not information people. Let me be very clear on this. Go test out the ambassadors. Ask them questions to see what replies you get. But an information system, you give that to the ambassadors so they'll be able to ask. One last thing. For the information system, it changes daily for a real time, and you create a QR code scan that brings you to that day's daily information. And every day it changes. If there's an event at the convention center, at the arena, the amphitheater, everything's going to be open. But if there's not, that QR code scan will let everybody know it's open. The museums, the bars, the restaurants, retail, shopping. And it's sad. Does anybody remember the information center, the Go site that was in the art museum years ago? But I'm done. This stuff says everything I want to say.
Great. Thank you for your time. Any other public comment? Okay, seeing no other members of the public wishing to speak on items, I will close the public comment period. Any commissioner comments?
Yes.
Yeah.
I just want to uplift a comment I made last month about snow and ice reporting, that there's some gaps in the GIS web map. I've experienced it on Pearl Street Bridge and the Hall Street Bridge as well. I know that we're on it. I just want to uplift that again, that our services are missing it. If we can find a way, I'd like to be part of that conversation. Second, this might be to my colleague, Commissioner Whistling as well. I'd like to find out if we're still in BRT compliance, what might be the, whether there are requirements, if at all, and if Grand Rapids is in compliance. The the lack of pre-boarding for the Silver Line particularly. I know that part of BRT is a dedicated bus lane, which we do not have. And part of that also is pre-boarding tap, which within the city of Grand Rapids, we do not have on the Silver Line anymore. And there's a few other features of that. I'd like to find out if we're in compliance or not and see how we might be able to come back into compliance if that's the case. Thank you.
Thanks, Commissioner Miguel Cipriano. Commissioner LeGrand, I saw you.
Yeah, so I'm going to give you all a handout too, so you can all take one. This is very easy. I drew it out so I can stay in my seat. So I would love a couple things.
Oh, can you turn your microphone on, please?
Sorry. A couple things I'd love the commission to think about. First of all, as I've said before, the city's going to get $10 million for the foreseeable future in new road money. I would like to see essentially all of that money go into the mobile GR budget, but I'd like it not to be for immobile part of the mobile GR. I don't want any of it to be spent on parking. I like to see it be spent on pedestrian safety and bike lane stuff. I've said to my fellow commissioners before, and I'll say it to you, so I think that it's time that we start having design standard principles for bike lane architecture, and because you'll notice they all start with a C. That's an attempt to make them memorable. I think we need continuity. Right now we treat bikes roughly the way that the French fur traders treated canoes. Like you take your bike and then the bike lane goes away, and so you got to portage your bike. Nobody expects people to portage their cars. Until we have actual continuity in our bike lanes, we're not going to get widespread adoption. So Eastern Lake, I gave you a map here. My other thought experiment is I want to see a proof of concept initial. Think of it as light rail for bikes. When you design light rail, nobody says, "Why didn't you do it over 2 blocks away?" I would like to see a viable, continuous bike lane prototype that would allow commuting from every ward of the city into the downtown core. And if we simply took Fulton and made all of Fulton from one side to the other side, actually had a designated bike lane on all of Fulton Street, you draw everybody from the zoo all the way to the east side of town into downtown. If you took Lake and you made all of Lake from East Grand Rapids to downtown an actual workable bike lane, it intersects nicely with Fulton, again, gets you downtown. Burton, there's about 4,000 blue-collar jobs down on Burton Cottage Grove neighborhood. A lot of jobs down there. But if you've got a 2-income family and the other person works downtown, which is where most of our jobs are, how do you get downtown on a bike? The answer is Eastern. Eastern's already got a bike lane from Burton all the way to Hall, but that's got to go through and connect up to Lake Drive. Now, I also think, so my 4 principles on bike design are continuity, no portaging of bikes. Consistency, don't make a bike lane that looks different from the last bike lane we made, looks different from the next bike lane we looked, because otherwise people don't know what a bike lane looks like. Changeable and cost effective. By that I mean, let's not spend $10 million a mile and do half a mile worth of bike lane. You can all look it up on ChatGPT, which is the only, maybe ChatGPT hallucinated when I asked it this question, but I asked it how much rumble strips cost if you use the machine to grind them out, and the answer is $800 a mile. $800 per mile. So great is the enemy of the good. We all love the dream of hard separated bike lanes, but a rumble strip separated bike lane, you can still plow over it, you can still clean over it. It gives cars an audible signal when they are getting into your space and trying to kill you. Everybody driving a car knows what a rumble strip sound means. It means get off your phone or wake up. So we could do that. We could have green stripes on it. It wouldn't cost us that much money. The nuisance is going to be the 2 things we're going to have to deal with is, do we have the courage to recommend getting rid of parking in front of community auto, so they have to put the cars somewhere else? And do we have the courage to actually get rid of some 90s curb bulb outs, which are, antithetical to bike consistency? And we'll have to actually spend some money to get rid of some of those bulb outs so that we can have the space to do this. I've driven and biked those routes, but if you could do that, then we get through the dry cycle chicken and egg problem of nobody's biking because there are no bike lanes, and there's no bike lanes because nobody's biking. And I'm using that in very broad terms. I know that people bike, but the central problem with this is, People don't believe it till they see it. But only the few and the proud are going to go out and bike in the world we've got right now. That's the reality. If we can make a part of our system work for commuters and make it unify all sectors of the city, I would love to see our commission come up with a flat-out recommendation that we do this. Is there going to be some pain? Absolutely. Some people are going to freak out about, community auto is probably not going to be happy if we do this. I haven't asked them, but there are other, they got plenty of side streets to put their spillover cars on. If you go down Fulton, there's a lot of Fulton that already has bike lanes, and the parts that don't, it's not impossible to think about continuity. But until you have continuity, like, nobody takes their car out and says, well, maybe there'll be a road in 2 blocks, right? Like, we can't expect people to bike if we don't have bike lane continuity. So they're done with my comments, but so the principles I think we got to bang again and again and again. Continuity, consistency, changeable, cost effective. And changeable also, and I want to just say this, if you put in something like in Planet, like the pyramids, like Turner, we're not pulling out that bike lane on Turner. It cost $400 million to make it. Nobody's going to change it, right? The bike lane over on Division probably cost about as much as remodeling the Fed. I mean, that cost a huge amount of money. Nobody's going to come rip out the sidewalks that they just poured down on Division outside this building. If we have changeable, though, you can say, try it, you'll like it. That's your message to the population. Way less scary than we're building a bike lane that's going to be here forever. And then when people try it, I hope they will like it. And if we're wrong, we can change our minds. Like, changeable is a really important design feature.
All right, we do have 1 minute left. I will, however, see if anyone else has comments. Just want to.
Chad, we have till 2 in this room.
Oh, we have till 2 in this room. All right.
I meant to bring that up earlier.
Gotcha.
Your previous chair had a hard stop at 60 or 90 minutes, and so this is actually up to you all, and we can discuss that more thoroughly. But we have this until 2.
By the way, whenever I'm grumpy and visionary about this, I am not implying a criticism. Like, I'm so happy with Jessica and her staff, and like, I really, really am, guys. So.
Yeah, I don't have a hard stop, so I was going off of old rules. So any other comments? Yeah.
I do have some, and Ariel just left, so I can't thank her. But I realized I beat up on her, but I do want to say just thank you to her publicly, because I recognize the amount of work that went into the working group and getting us all in line and coming up with the draft policy. So I do really appreciate all the work that she did there. And then my comment more broadly is that I do recognize that type of policy should come hand in hand with other work programs, whatever that the city might have to encourage mode shift, all of the goals that we have. And so what I would like to see in the near term future is maybe some brainstorming, thinking what are those next goals that we have that work hand in hand with a policy like a parking incentive program. And that could be taking advantage of money from the state that's coming in. That could be anything else. So I would like to see us think hard about that, because we can say, oh, this program has to come with other things, but then if we never do those other things, then it didn't happen. So that's what I have, and thank you again to Ariel.
Any other comments? Okay. I'll make one last comment. First off, thank you all for a great first meeting. I just want to kind of tell you all my thoughts on where, kind of what my goals are for chair. First off, I want to make sure that, we kind of continue with the great discussions that we have. And today was no exception. So thank you all for that. But then, I think my thought is understanding where we fit in as this advisory committee, but then how do we take the power that we have to coordinate with Mobile GR as an entity, and then advocate at where I think a lot of these policies happen, and that's at the city commission level. So my goal is to coordinate and work to make sure that we are supporting what this body wants to see happen, And that could look like us voting on memos where we are urging or asking for the commission to take up these ideas. And then to some degree, this is my plan to present with Jessica at the commission or even provide public comment. I think that's going to be a good way for us to move forward with some positive change if we're able to do that. So I wanted to put my thoughts and opinions out there of how I believe that we could really make some great positive change. So those are my comments. If there are no other comments, I'll move to adjourn. Thank you all. Yeah, thank you.